Guys, I am so excited. I am starting a new podcast, and this one is called the Fiery Furnace Podcast. And you guys know that I've been making pizza and talking about Jesus, but I want to kind of direct people to this podcast from that show because this podcast, I believe, is going to be my anchor when it comes to content creating. Because with this podcast, it's strictly Christian based. I'm going to be talking about some Bible stories. I'm gonna be talking about things that God is speaking to me and through me. And first, I want to just give you guys some disclaimers. One, I'm recording in my house, in my room, and there's probably gonna be some times where my dogs are making some noise or barking, and sometimes my mom would probably like ask me a question or like saying, "Hey son, this isn't that," so you hear either my mom. But most of the part, I'm trying to make a time of day where it's gonna be quiet most of the time. But if you hear some other noises, just bear with me. I'm sorry. Also, is a Christian based podcast, so I believe that Jesus died on the cross for everyone listening and watching around the world. He did that because he loved us, and he is the one and true King. He's the one and true God as well. There's no other God but Jesus. So that's what I believe in. So if you don't believe in that, this is not the podcast for you. But I also believe if you do stay and you don't believe, that maybe his love and him knocking on your door is going to allow you to see who he really is, and that he is truly the one and true God, and that I hope that you guys have an open heart to receive him. And another disclaimer, I didn't go to Bible school. I'm not a pastor. I'm not a minister. I'm just I'm just Roberto Ramos who loves Jesus, and he has taught me so much, and he through the Holy Spirit he has allowed me to understand his word, understand him and some principles. And then I've also some if my message sounds a little bit like your favorite pastor, it's because he's probably my favorite pastor too. So I get inspired by other people who are preaching on this on their platforms, but maybe I could bring my own twist to it, and hopefully maybe one day I could be your favorite Bible teacher or Christian friend, or I don't know. But the Fiery Ferns podcast, I'm excited. We get all that taken care of, and throughout all the episodes, anyways, you all understand. So today, I am going over the book or the story of Noah and the Ark. And if you guys don't know, I'll explain like a brief explanation, and then we'll go in depth. But some of the themes that we're going to talk about today, and the title of this podcast or this episode is called Hail versus Hail. And I was at church, I'm my home church, and they were singing a song, which is funny because today when I went to church, they were singing the song again. But when I originally heard it, it was a couple weeks ago, and the one of the lyrics is called or is Hail King Jesus. And I was like, wow, like he is the one true king. And I know a lot of people do not have the posture to get on their knees or to bow their soul and who they are to submit to themselves to God and say that he is the king. I know that's we could be prideful sometimes, and our egos could get in the way, and we don't want to like we're kind of like saying, hey, like I am a being, and I don't need to believe in the God, and I don't need to do things my own way. And that kind of ties into the story that we're gonna go over today, of the reason why God decided many years ago to destroy the earth. But there's hope. And so yeah, so in the lyrics it goes Hail King Jesus. And as I was hearing the song, I was like all hail him, like giving my praise and worships to him. And while I was hearing it, Jesus, the Holy Spirit reminded me of the other type of hail, like raining hail. And I was like, dang, like, and then right after that, he was like, your first episode of the podcast is going to be hail, as in like raining hail, versus hail, as in praising God. And I was like, what better story when it comes to hail, then talk about when God brought down rain for 40 days and destroyed everything on the earth. And that's what we're going to go into today. So just a little like summary, we'll go into the depth, but many years ago, God saw the evil in the world, and he was like, man, like God doesn't make mistakes, but he's like, look at what I've created. I'm going to destroy all of it. And I don't know like God's intentions after like when he made the decision to destroy everything, but he was like, yeah, like I'm gonna destroy everything. I'm gonna let it rain for 40 days and destroy everything. But there was one person in the world that was walking righteously with God, and that in turn allowed him to be saved by God and protected by God, and him and his family were also protected too. So they were able to go into the ark. So Noah in the ark. Noah built this ark from God's instruction because God was like, hey, I'm going to destroy the earth, but I don't want to destroy you because you've been walking with me. You've been walking righteously. You love me. I see you and your family. I need you to make this ark, and I need you to put all the animals in it. I need to put all the creatures in it. You need to put yourself and all your family in this ark, and it's gonna save you guys. So that way, when it's done, when I'm done destroying the earth, you guys are still protected, and all the animals are protected as well. And then after it stopped raining, Noah and his family and everyone in the ark was able to go on land and then start the human population from there. And that's where all of us are from, is from Noah and his generations. But there's a lot of things in between. So we're gonna go over some little things that I've noticed while reading the story, and some things that we could apply in our lives. So hopefully that you guys can apply to your life, and I can apply to mine as well, and see why God saw favor and protected Noah. And being protected by God and being saved by God is such a blessing. And it's a blessing on its own. But yeah, we're gonna go right into it. So if you want to read it on your own, pick up a Bible or the Bible app. It's free, and it's chapter 6 through 9. So if you want to read what I'm reading, chapter 6 through 9. So we're gonna go over this verse, and it starts from Genesis 5 through 8. The Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every intention of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And the Lord regretted that he had made man on earth, and it grieved him to his heart. So the Lord said, I will blot out man, whom I have created from the face of the land, man and animals and creepy things, and birds of the heavens, for I'm sorry that I have made them. But Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. So let's go back to verse 5. The Lord saw the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every intention of the thoughts of the heart was only evil continually. God decided to destroy the earth because of man's intentions. We can, as human beings, we know sometimes why we do things is not always right. And he looks at the heart, not what you do. So if you're doing something that your intention is not righteous, is not of love, not of the Spirit, God looks at that as evil. And the reason why he wanted to destroy the whole earth was because of intentions. The people on this earth at the time, all of them, their intentions were not pure, they were not righteous, they were not of God. And if you go back into the beginning of the chapter, it says that When man began to multiply on the face of the land and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of man were attractive, and they took as their wives any they chose. So when you don't respect God and you do as you please, your intentions are not of God. And that is the sole reason why he destroyed the earth at the time. He just like, you guys think that I've given you this and you get to take and do as you please. When you don't fear God, which is basically, to anybody who doesn't, when fearing God is basically, to fear God is acknowledging that he is God. So you desire to live righteous. That is fearing God. So when you don't fear God and choose your own path or think God does not exist so you can do as you please, this is what they did. This is what all those people at the earth in the time did. They didn't fear God. They didn't think he existed. And they're like, hey, I'm going to do as I please. And then God in turn was like, all right, I'm going to destroy all of you. So Noah, being the righteous man, sought after God first, and then his intentions were aligned with God. So are your intentions, or is my intentions aligned with God? In doing so, for the people that were having the impure intentions, the evil intentions, the not righteous intentions, God told them, my spirit shall not abide in man forever. God created us in his own image. And he was like, because your intentions, I'm not gonna have my spirit with you guys anymore. But God is so good. He sent his son, and his son dying on the cross for us. As he died on the cross and conquered death, hell, and the grave, he left his spirit so we can receive his spirit. But at this time, God was like, my spirit shall not abide in man. But God, being so gracious, sent his own son, and his son was like, hey, I'm going to leave the spirit so we can have access to the spirit. We can have access to God. So Noah, God saw that he was righteous and that his intentions were pure and his intentions were righteous. When you walk with God, you are protected by God, because Noah was walking with God, and being righteous led him to be saved by God and protected by the ark. So when you walk with God, you're saved and you're also protected. Having that protection of the one who knows it all. He knows the beginning and the end. He knows when you go drive in the car, what cars are going to be going across crossways. He knows when you are hiking and you see the ledge and you're about to step off the edge. He protects you and he guides you in such a way. So when you walk righteously with God, you're getting that protection. You're getting God to order your steps physically and spiritually. You have a sense of peace knowing that you're protected. You can, when he wakes you up, he's got your back from the start of your day to the end of the day. That's why he says in his word, he is for us, not against us. He knows everything. But when Noah decided to walk righteously with God, and God was like, hey, I'm going to destroy the earth, but you're going to be saved and I'm going to protect you. God gave them instructions to build the ark. Being obedient to God's instructions leads, one, your safety and your friends and family safety, And two, you'll be able to see things that God has intended for you to see. But imagine if Noah was like, God, I love you. I walk with you. You're amazing. He's like, but I don't feel like building no ark. That sounds like a lot of years and a lot of time. And I'm just chilling. I wanna just lay around in my house with my family and eat my food. I love you, God, but I that sounds like a lot of work. I don't want to. I don't know how to do it, and I don't want to do it. You think me and you would be here today if Noah felt like that? So why is it that when God gives us an instruction, we treat him as such? Like, God, I don't feel it. I don't know how. I don't know how long it's gonna take. I don't want to do it. It sounds like a lot. You are missing out on his protection, and you are missing out on the blessing that he has for you. Noah was able to start all the humans after him because he put in the work. He saw God's instruction with building the ark, and he's like, all right, God, I'm gonna do it. No matter how I feel, no matter how long it takes, I'm gonna do it. Because God was like, hey, I need you to do it. And he was like, all right, God, I'm gonna do it. This leads to my next point. When God established his covenant with you, it leads to divine work, like your purpose, your calling, your stewardship, obedience, tending to the field before you go out and reap. So when God promised you something, when he has a covenant, when he's like, hey, I need you to do this. But usually when he says that, it follows work. Faith without works is dead. It follows work. We have to work. That's just the nature that we have to work. But like I said, there's hope. This work leads to Noah being at a place that no one has ever been. It's like, I mean, the people around him were there with him, but it all started with Noah. Later in the story, in chapter 7, it shows that in verse 5, and it says like this, and Noah did all that the Lord had commanded him. He did everything that God commanded him. So when God comes to us and to you, and he's like, hey, I need you to do this, 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 and this. He's not telling you to do this, skip a couple, that, no, he's like, I need you to do this, 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 and this. Noah did all the things that God commanded him to do, all things. Yes, it may be daunting. Yes, it may look like it's hard and it's a lot of work. But later on in the story, you'll see what happens when you do all the things that God has commanded you to do. You will see. God wants your full commitment to the instruction he gives. God is not our parents where we can tell him we don't feel like it. If we do tell him that, two things could happen. He gives his blessing to someone who is willing to do his instructions. So for the people that they're like, hey, it's hard, I don't want to do it, I don't feel like doing it, that's too many years. He's like, all right, cool. I'm not going to give you the blessing that comes after the work. I'm going to give it to someone who's willing to do all the work. And so while you guys are looking at, on social media, comparisons, a thief of joy. So watch out for who you're looking at. But when you see people having the blessing that you feel like it was promised to you, it's because they were willing to put in the work. They did all the things that God commanded them to do. Or two, you will never know your full potential that God has for you. Noah wouldn't been able to see the new world without all those people and him being the start of all of it if he didn't do all the things that God commanded him to do. Noah was able to reach his full potential as the start of humanity, which is his full potential, because he did what he had to do. Because God was like, hey, I need you to build the ark. He built it. And he was like, I need all these animals in it. All the animals were in it. He was like, I'm gonna need you to wait. He waited. And remember when I said, when you do all the things that God has commanded, when you follow God's instruction, you'll be able to see things that you have never seen before. That was Noah. And that's going to be you. And that's going to be me. And I can prove it to you in Genesis 7, verse 17. The flood continued 40 days on the earth. The waters increased and bore up the ark, and it rose high above the earth. The physical ark was risen all the way past the mountains. Like Mount Everest, your tallest mount, the ark was above that. Noah being intentional, being obedient, being one with God and walking with God, led him to build the ark. So when it rained and the waters increased, like God promised, he said, hey, I'm going to destroy the world with water. The water came up, the water came up, the water came up. And now Noah and his family were so above the earth that they saw the earth from a different perspective. They seen what God sees that no one else was able before them to see. God put them in a position to be one of one. And the only way that they were able to see what no one else was be able to see, or to experience what no one else was able to experience, because Noah did all that God commanded. The same water that was meant to destroy the earth is the same water that rose Noah to a place no one has ever been, high above the earth with God's protection. Do you want to be in a place with God's protection and that no one has ever been? You can do that. You have to know where it all starts. The reason why the earth was destroyed was because of the intentions. You start having good intention, lining up with God, you're on your way to seeing things that no one else has ever seen, and having God's protection. Without God, Noah would have never seen the earth from that perspective. God is the reason why he built the ark, and God is the reason why that there was water destroying the earth. Without God, you won't be able to be that place that no one has ever been. Without God, you won't have that protection from him. We have to know where all these things come from. Is from God. Respect him as such. Know where your blessings come from. Know where your protection comes from. Know where your love comes from. Know where the joy and the peace comes from. Know where the prosperous plan and path that God has for you. Know where it comes from. It comes from him. We give all the things that happen in our lives, we give glory to him because it comes from him. You are able to see what God sees when you allow him to rise you up. Noah, when he gave up his own ways and he just did all that God commanded him to do, when he let go and then latched onto God's instruction, latched onto God's commands, he was able to be risen up. He was able to see what God sees. And don't you want to be able to see what God sees? Don't you want to be able to be risen up and to see things that from a godly perspective? You have to let go. You have to let go. And when you let go, you need to grab onto something. And the only thing you need to be grabbing on after you let go of your control, after you let go of not wanting to do things, after you let go of how you feel, after you let go of other people's agenda, when you let go of all that, you know what you grab onto? You grab onto Jesus. You grab onto God. And when you grab on, he's going to take you up and up and up. And you're going to be able to see what God sees. You're going to be able to be in God's presence with his protection. But it all starts from letting go and grabbing on to what you need to grab onto. Water without God's favor can destroy you. All the people that were not Noah and his family got destroyed. Water with God's favor can rise you up. Now let's think to ourselves. What is destroying me right now? What is destroying you right now? Is this something that we can give to God and he can use it to rise us up? Or is this something that is almost an indicator that God's favor is not on it and it's only destroying me? That water that destroyed everybody, we can replace that water with the things like the relationship, the job, the finances, the intentions, the family members, the friends, the addictions, the sinful nature, the thing that makes you feel horrible. Can we give any of these things that I mentioned? Can we give it to God and he would take on it and then he'll rise us up with it? Or are these things indicators that I'm only being destroyed by it and I'll only die from it? Water in this situation for Noah was a blessing. And for the people that weren't Noah, was a curse, was their fate. God provided the water. He let it rain down on the earth. But with God being involved in it, it allowed Noah to be risen and to see what only Noah was able to see from a godly perspective. But when you have evil intentions and not a pure heart and you're not walking with God, you're going to get destroyed. You're going to die. That's why it's very important to know your intentions and how you walk. Are you walking by faith? Or are you walking like you don't fear God? That you don't want to walk righteous and that you think that he doesn't exist? The next thing I want to go over is, here we go. Then Noah built an altar to the Lord and took some of every clean animal and some of every clean bird and offered burnt offerings on the altar. And when the Lord smelled the pleasing aroma, the Lord said in his heart, I will never again curse the ground because of man, for the intention of man's heart is evil from his youth. Neither will I ever again strike down every living creature as I've done. While the earth remains, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night shall not cease. The hope that I was talking about earlier in this episode is displayed in these couple verses. God loved us so much and loved how Noah and his family acted that he was like, I'm never going to do this again. I'm never going to destroy the earth again. I will never do it. But let's go back on the first couple verses. Then Noah built an altar to the Lord and took some of every clean animal and some of every clean bird and offered burnt offerings on the altar. When there was no more water on the earth, and Noah and his family and all the creatures was able to leave the ark, the first thing that Noah did was offered these clean animals to God. He offered what God gave him to protect. And let's go a couple verses before. God designed it for 7 clean animals and 7 clean birds to be put on the ark initially when the rain was about to start. He put those birds and those animals in there. So there's moments in our lives where God has placed something in our lives that he wants us to offer to him. But it's our intentions, it's what we do, what God gives us, to then say, hey, I'm gonna keep it for myself. God's like, hey, God gave me these 7 clean animals and 7 clean birds. I'm just gonna multiply them. Or did God give me these animals and these birds for a reason? That reason, in Noah's case, was to give it back to God. He walked with God, and the only way he knew that he needed to offer what God gave him was because he was walking with God. He knew what allowed him to be saved by him and protected by him and receive those instructions to the ark. He was doing burnt offerings before. So the first thing that me and you need to do is see when God wants us to be in this new season or this new promise or this new calling. The first thing that we need to do, just how Noah did, is see what we can offer to God. Because as this and after the verse, he took some of every clean animal and some of every clean bird and offered burnt offerings on the altar. And look at the next verse. And when the Lord smelled the pleasing aroma, the Lord said in his heart, I will never again curse the ground because of man. God smells the offering. God recognized the offering. God seen that Noah's intention was to give it back to God. And so God, knowing that his heart was pure and his heart was righteous, was said, I will never do this again. I will never do this again. So when we walk into this new season, into this new calling, into this new purpose, what can we give God first? Some examples I have to give to you is, if he gave you money to be responsible over, give it back to him. You start off with the tithe, what's owed to him, because anything that we have when it comes to money is God's anyways. So give him the 10%. But anything after the 10%, if you give it back to him, it's an offering. You want to offer that extra to God. If he gave you a spouse or a potential spouse, like a girlfriend or a boyfriend, give God purity. Don't have sex before marriage. If he gave you something materialistic, like a house, a car, a phone, a camera, or anything that God has given you materialistically, give him, God, the opportunity to use that item to bring more people to the kingdom. How can you use that materialistic thing that God has given you to bring more people to the kingdom? If he's giving you a car, can you take people to their nearest destination if they don't have a car? Can you offer your car to help others get their groceries? If he's giving you a house, can you allow gatherings to happen at your house where you could do Bible study, where you can bring people over for some meals, to have that conversation and help them know that you are the Bible in their lives and that you just direct them to God? If he's giving you a laptop, can you work with that laptop to then work on your ministry or work on a show like I am as well, and use what he has given you and blessed you with for the kingdom. If he's given you an idea, use that idea to bring back to him more than what was intended. For example, he gave me the idea with the show. So what I'm going to do is take this show, this idea that he's given me, give it to him again, and put Jesus in the center of it. So that way, when I give him back the show has then ministered to millions of people. The show has then was able to produce revenue so that I can then give funds back to the church or back to the community. The show was able to connect and network to a Christian group or to people who didn't know Christ and was able to be saved because of the messages. That idea, I'm gonna take it and then give it back to him more blessings on top of it. It reminds me of the story of the talents. I can go over that story if you guys want me to, or when God wants me to. But there was a master. There was 3 servants, and one got 5 gold, another one got 2 gold, and then one had 1 gold. The one with 5 gold was able to give back to the master 10 gold, so he doubled it. The one with 2 gold was able to give back to the master 4 gold, so he doubled it. And then the one with 1 buried it. I want to be able to take this idea that God has given me and give it back to him doubled. And whatever idea he's given you, you can give back to him and double it. The last thing I want to go over in the story of Noah and the ark was after they left the boat, after they were protected, after Noah, the first thing he did was offer back to God what he was given, was an instruction from the Lord, from God. God said these words to Noah, and I want to go over these words because in our new season, when our intentions are pure, while we are able to see things that God has ordained for us to see, he's risen us up because we were able to let go and give him what it is that we were led to give to him. He was able to raise us up with it. And then the first thing we did was offer it back to him. And then after that, he gives us something to do. So this is what we're going to do. In Genesis 9, verse 7, and you be fruitful and multiply. Increase greatly on the earth and multiply in it. When he says, and you be fruitful and multiply, the be fruitful and multiply is to multiply the fruit that he is giving you. When he says be fruitful, it means in what ways we can be fruitful and multiply the fruit. And you're like, what is fruit? If we're talking about mangoes, we're talking about grapes. In Galatians 5, verse 22, but the Spirit produces the fruit of love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, and faithfulness. We can take love and multiply it. We can take joy and multiply it. We can take peace and multiply it. We can take patience and multiply it. We can take kindness and multiply it. We can take goodness and multiply it. We can take faithfulness and multiply it. But fruit also is the outcome of God's promise in your life. Whatever God has promised you and it was able to produce an outcome, that's the fruit of God. And whatever that is, and whatever God was able to do through you, you can multiply it. I want to give you guys some examples. The instruction is to be fruitful and multiply. So we already know some of the fruits like love, joy, peace, patience. That's the spirit. We can multiply that. And just like multiplication, after you start, you do it more and more and often. You be kind to 2 people, you end up being kind to 4 people, you end up 8 people. But it all could start with 1. The 1 can go to 2, the 2 can go to 4, the 4. We're just multiplying. But if he's giving you resources like money, if he's giving you time, if he's giving you opportunities to network, if he's giving you opportunities to cook or use your gifts, how can you multiply it and be fruitful in it? So that way, whatever it is that God has given you as the fruit, if it's like, like for me, for example, the show, whatever comes out of the show would be the fruit. That's the outcome. I take that outcome and then I multiply that again. That's the story with the talents. They were given 5 gold and they ended up giving back the 10 gold. What I do with the outcome of what God has given me is based off the principles of God. And we can go over the principles of God, but some of them is giving. Some of them is fellowship. Some of them is reading the word and being able to teach it, being a vessel, being the Bible, turning the other cheek when someone wrongs you, forgiving people that had wronged you. You can use what God has given you and multiply it. And towards the end of the chapter, in verse 22, chapter 9, verse 22. I'm going to give you some context. Noah had some sons. And so after the rain stopped and they're all on the land again, God had blessed Noah with the opportunity to be a farmer gifted with the land. And Noah made a vineyard, and with vineyards you can make wine. Noah made wine, and one day he got too drunk. The wine was too good, too sweet. I hear you, Noah, because sometimes the wine could be too sweet. It tastes like juice after 2 glasses. And we're picking up. So he got a little drunk. We're picking up in verse 22. And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father and told his 2 brothers outside. Then Shem and Japheth took a garment, laid it on both of their shoulders, and walked backward and covered the nakedness of their father. Their faces were turned backward, and they did not see their father's nakedness. When Noah awoke from his wine and knew that his youngest son had done to him, he said, "Cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants shall be to his brothers." He also said, "Blessed be the Lord, the God of Shem, and let Canaan be his servant. May God enlarge Japheth, and let him dwell in the tents of Shem, and let Canaan be his servant." Noah was in a vulnerable place in his life because he was drunk, he was naked. Ham, the one who pointed out his nakedness to his brothers, was cursed. So if you are looking at someone's vulnerability and pointing it out to other people or pointing it out in general, you're going to be cursed. But if you're like Shem and Japheth, when you see someone's vulnerability and you protect it and you shelter it and you don't point it out, you get blessed. So when you see someone in their weakest or their most vulnerable state in their life, don't point it out. Be the Bible. Cover them. You can cover them with prayer. You can cover them by just being there with them, seeing how you can help them. How you can walk by faith and walk how Jesus did and heal. He's given us the power to heal. He's given us the power to speak life over people. We have the power of life in our tongue. So when you see people in a vulnerable state, don't point it out and be cursed. Protect it. Shelter it. So that way you could be blessed. Thank you guys for an amazing first episode. I'm pumped up. And I know you guys are too. I love you guys. And it would be wrong of me if I didn't close out this way. For anybody who's listening to this episode of the Fiery Furnace podcast and you do not know Jesus Christ, the fate of you at this moment, you not knowing him, is being separated from him for the rest of eternity. Eternity doesn't have an end. It's forever. And being separated from God is hell. And hell is not a place that you guys want to be in. I also don't want you to give your life to Christ just because you just don't want to go to hell. Your intention has to be pure. Your intention has to be righteous. If you feel like God is knocking on the door right now and you know it's God, then open it. And how we're going to open that door is by a prayer. So if you want to join me in this prayer, join me in this prayer and give your life to Christ, and you will never be separated from him again. Your eternity is going to be with God. You're going to be in heaven. So if you feel led to pray this prayer, let's do it. If you don't feel led, it's okay. God is gracious. He walked on this earth for the sick. He walked on this earth for the lost. He said in his word that he will leave the 99 for the one. You might be the one. This is not your time yet. But just to know that he will leave everything for you. It's okay. But if you do feel led, let's do this prayer. Jesus, thank you for knocking on the door right now. I am a sinner. I confess to you that I have sinned. And I confess to you that I made mistakes. I confess to you that you are the one and true God. I confess with my tongue that you are King, and there is no other. You are the King of kings. You are the Lord of lords. And I believe that you died on the cross for my sins. And that I will be transformed in you. I may not understand fully, but the one thing I do understand is what you did for me. And that is, you gave your life, you shed your blood for my sins and my iniquities and my transgressions. And I just want to know you more. I want to have a relationship with you, not religion with you. I want to have a relationship with you. So Jesus, I pray that you could meet me here right now. And I believe in you and only you. Protect me. Protect me. Put me in a place where I am protected and saved by you. Thank you for all that you've done. In your beautiful name. In Jesus' name, I pray. Amen. Episode 1 in the books. I'll see you guys in episode 2.